I think it's certainly changing in multiple ways. One is that A-level has changed. So students now are coming to university without the kind of critical tools, thinking tools that they had maybe 20, 30 years ago. So there's a gulf between A-level and degree in terms of the skills that A-level gives, which is getting wider and wider. Part of the issue there as well is an approach to teaching at schools, which I know schools are unhappy with, which is about results. It's about minimising risk, it's about playing safe, being as strategic as possible, and not relying solely on the student to do all the work. So there's a sense there of really quite extensive intervention by teachers in the assessment process, for instance, so that marks can be as high as possible. There's then a difficulty for us in getting students to make the step intellectually from A-level to degree, but also emotionally. There's a very different way of going about things, and there's a very different outcome. We're trying to develop qualities of mind, which are just not being considered at school. Particularly independence, critical thought, the ability to motivate oneself, the ability to think for oneself. Where students often arrive here and we have a set of assumptions about the degree that they don't share. And we then have a real struggle on our hands to try and socialise them into a university context. And sometimes students are very open to that, they want to broaden their minds, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're very, very resistant and want us to change to fit them rather than the other way around. Which I'm enormously sympathetic to. And unfortunately, the introduction of fees has exacerbated that quite noticeably. The vast majority of students, that's not the case, but there is an ever-growing cohort of students with the response to the university degree is, what am I getting out of this? What are you giving me? Why won't you allow me to do my essay as many times as I can in order to get the best mark, and so on and so forth. And again, that's a fairly small number of students, but it is a growing number of students, and it presents us with challenges. In some respects, that's made us raise our game. It's made us rethink, well, how do we get students to transition to university? How do we support students with those kinds of difficulties? And we've responded in all sorts of different ways, things like mentoring schemes and so on. Is that enough? I don't know. I think time will tell. But certainly that landscape is altering. The assumptions that students are bringing to bear are very different to the ones they used to have. That also impacts on what they want to study. They don't want to study medieval history. They don't want to study anything really other than 20th century history. Now, as a 20th century historian, that's great for me. But in terms of the construction of a curriculum, it's disastrous. You know, would a curriculum that's just 20th century history be a rich curriculum? No, it wouldn't. And I didn't do a 20th century degree myself, I did a medieval degree. So there's a kind of feeling there of, do we follow the customer, if you want to use that word? Does the customer always know best? Or do we do things they don't like because we know best? You know, we've got a plan about their academic development, which is about what's good for a history degree. Well, there are all sorts of pushes and pulls there. There are all sorts of contradictions and tensions, which I think we're having to negotiate a path through. And there are no obvious answers to that either. But the pressures to follow, what the customer wants are ever growing.